There are regrets that do not disappear with time. They grow quieter. They hide beneath work, family responsibilities, daily routines, and the noise of ordinary life. But after 60, when the days become slower and the house becomes quieter, they often return. A decision you wish you had made differently, a person you should have treated better, a dream you abandoned, a child you did not understand, a marriage you stayed in too long or left too soon, words you spoke in anger, words you were too afraid to speak, years spent working while the people you loved waited for your attention, a parent you never forgave before they died, an apology that came too late or never came at all. When you are young, regret often hides behind the belief that there will be time to repair everything later. Later, you will call. Later, you will apologize. Later, you will travel. Later, you will become the person you meant to be. But after 60, later no longer feels endless. The mind begins to look backward. It reviews old choices as though preparing a final judgment. It asks, what if I had chosen differently? Did I waste too much time? Did I hurt the people I loved? Is it too late to make peace with my life? Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to pretend that the past does not matter. It does not tell you that every choice was correct. And it does not remove responsibility for the harm you may have caused. Instead, it teaches something more compassionate and more difficult. You can acknowledge what happened without allowing it to destroy the life that remains. You can learn from the past without continuing to live inside it. You can repair what is still repairable. You can forgive what cannot be changed. And you can stop using today to punish the person you were yesterday. In this story, we will explore 5 Buddhist lessons for releasing the regrets that often become heavier after 60. The 5th lesson may be the most important, because it reveals that regret is not asking you to go backward. It is asking you to become more awake now. So take a slow breath. Let your shoulders soften. You do not need to defend your whole life tonight. You only need to become willing to meet the past with honesty and compassion. In a quiet town near the mountains, there lived a 68-year-old man named Julian. Julian repaired clocks. For more than 40 years, people had brought him clocks that ran too slowly, too quickly, or not at all. He understood tiny gears, broken springs, worn hands. He knew how to restore movement to almost anything, but on a shelf above his workbench stood one clock he had never repaired. It was a small brass clock with a cracked glass face. Its hands had stopped at 8:17. Whenever anyone asked about it, Julian changed the subject. The clock had belonged to his younger brother, Samuel. 40 years earlier, Julian and Samuel had argued. Their father had died, leaving them a small piece of land. Samuel wanted to sell it and use the money to leave town. Julian wanted to keep it. The argument became bitter. Julian accused Samuel of abandoning the family. Samuel accused Julian of controlling everyone around him. At 8:17 that evening, Samuel placed the brass clock on Julian's table and said, "You care more about holding on than you care about me." Then he left. A few months later, Samuel died in an accident while traveling. The brothers never spoke again. The clock had stopped on the same night. For 40 years, Julian kept it frozen at 8:17. He told himself it was a reminder, but it was also a punishment. Every time he looked at it, he returned to the argument. He heard his own angry voice. He saw his brother's face. He imagined all the words he should have said. One winter morning, an elderly Buddhist monk named Brother Hale, entered Julian's shop, carrying an old wooden clock. "It has stopped," the monk said. Julian opened the case. The mechanism was dusty but intact. "This one can be repaired." Brother Hale looked toward the brass clock on the shelf. "And that one?" Julian's hands became still. "That one cannot." "Why?" "Because the moment it belongs to cannot be repaired." Brother Hale studied Julian's face. "Perhaps the clock does not need repair. Then what does?" Julian did not answer. The monk returned each morning for 5 days, while Julian worked on the wooden clock. During those visits, Brother Hale shared 5 Buddhist lessons about regret, responsibility, forgiveness, and the life that remains. The brass clock did not begin moving again, but something inside Julian did. On the first morning, Brother Hale asked Julian to describe the argument with his brother. Julian told the story carefully, but each time he spoke about his younger self, his voice became harsh. "I was selfish. I was controlling. I should have known better. I destroyed our last chance to be brothers." Brother Hale listened. Then he asked, "How old were you?" 28. "What were you afraid of?" Julian hesitated. "My father had just died." "And the land?" "It was the last thing he left us." "What did keeping it mean to you?" "That the family would not disappear." Brother Hale nodded. "You were not only angry, you were grieving." Julian looked away. The mind often judges the past using knowledge gained much later. At 68, Julian could see that the land was only land. At 28, it had represented safety, loyalty, family, and fear. He had not understood how grief had shaped his anger. He had not known that the argument would become their last conversation. If he had known, he would have spoken differently. But regret is built around knowledge that was not available inside the original moment. We say, "I should have known," but often we could not have known. We had fewer experiences, less emotional maturity, less courage, less information. We were influenced by fear, exhaustion, family patterns, culture, pride, and wounds we had not yet understood. This does not make every choice harmless. It does not remove responsibility, but responsibility without context becomes cruelty. There was once a young traveler who chose a path through the mountains. The sky was clear when he began. Later, a storm arrived. The traveler became lost. Years afterward, he blamed himself. "I should have chosen the valley road." An old guide asked, "Were the storm clouds visible when you made the choice?" "No." "Then you are judging the traveler for not seeing weather that had not yet arrived." Many people do this to their younger selves. They blame themselves for not understanding lessons that took decades to learn. Perhaps you married someone who later became cruel. At the beginning, you did not see what would come. Perhaps you refused an opportunity because fear was stronger than confidence. Perhaps you stayed in a job because your family needed stability. Perhaps you failed to express love because you were raised in a home where no one expressed it. The past version of you may have been imperfect, but that person was not standing where you stand now. They did not possess today's understanding. Buddhist compassion asks us to see causes and conditions. No action appears from nowhere. Every decision grows from countless conditions. Your childhood, your pain, your beliefs, your circumstances, your level of awareness at the time. This does not mean saying, "I had no responsibility." It means saying, "I was human inside conditions I did not fully understand." Julian asked, "Are you saying what I did was acceptable?" No, Brother Hale replied. I am saying hatred of your younger self will not bring your brother peace. Julian looked at the brass clock. For 40 years, he had imagined that self-punishment proved his love. But perhaps punishment was only another way of remaining trapped at 8:17. Bring to mind one choice you still judge yourself for. Picture the person you were then. How old were you? What were you afraid of? What did you not yet understand? Say quietly, you knew only what you knew. You had only the awareness you had. This does not erase responsibility, but it allows compassion. Then say, I will judge the past honestly, but I will not judge it without mercy. On the second morning, Julian showed Brother Hale a drawer beneath his workbench. Inside were letters he had written to Samuel over the years. None had been sent. Some contained apologies. Others contained anger. Many began with, if only I had let you go. If only I had listened. If only I had called before it was too late. Julian had written hundreds of pages. Brother Hale asked, what happens after you write these letters? I feel worse. Then why continue? Because I deserve to feel worse. This belief is common. We think suffering proves that we understand the seriousness of our mistake. We believe that if we stop hurting, we are excusing what happened. So we keep ourselves in pain. We replay the event. We imagine different endings. We refuse joy. We sabotage new relationships. We turn regret into a life sentence. But continued suffering does not travel backward. It does not prevent the original harm. It does not comfort the person who was hurt. It only creates new suffering in the present. There was once a man who accidentally dropped a lamp and burned part of his neighbor's home. He apologized. He helped rebuild the house. He replaced everything that was lost. But each night, he lit another fire in his own room and held his hand near the flame. Why are you doing this? His neighbor asked. To prove that I am sorry. The neighbor replied, your pain does not rebuild my home. Your actions did. Regret becomes useful when it leads to responsibility, an apology, repair, changed behavior, greater awareness. But once responsibility has been taken, continued self-punishment adds nothing. It often prevents growth because it keeps attention fixed on the identity. I am a terrible person. This identity can feel humble, but it is another form of self-absorption. Instead of asking, how can I live differently now? The mind asks, how bad am I? One question creates transformation. The other creates paralysis. Julian said, my brother is dead. There is nothing I can repair. Brother Hale replied, you cannot repair the conversation with Samuel, but can you repair the way you speak to people now? Julian thought of his daughter. She had once told him that he became cold whenever they disagreed. He had dismissed her. He suddenly recognized the same pattern from the argument with Samuel. Regret often reveals a pattern that still exists. The past cannot be changed, but the pattern can. You cannot apologize to someone who has died in the ordinary way, but you can honor them through how you live. You can offer patience where you once offered anger. You can listen where you once controlled. You can become generous where you once held too tightly. The best apology to the past may be a changed life in the present. Punishment says, I must continue suffering. Wisdom says, I must stop causing the same suffering. These are not the same. Ask yourself, have I confused guilt with love? Have I believed that peace would mean I no longer care? Say, my suffering cannot rewrite the past, My changed actions can shape the present. I do not honor my mistakes by repeating them against myself. Then, I choose responsibility over punishment. On the third morning, Brother Hale asked Julian to repair a clock with a broken spring. Julian removed the damaged part and examined it. "This spring cannot be used again," he said. "Then it is worthless?" the monk asked. "For the clock, yes. For your understanding." Julian looked at the spring. "No. It shows me why the clock stopped." Brother Hale smiled. "Then perhaps a broken thing can still teach. Regret is painful because it points towards something we value. If you regret working too much, perhaps you value presence. If you regret speaking harshly, perhaps you value kindness. If you regret staying silent, perhaps you value courage. If you regret neglecting your health, perhaps you value life. Regret contains information. It shows where your actions and your deepest values separated. The problem is not regret itself. The problem is remaining inside regret without transforming it. There was once an elderly woman who spent her life saving beautiful dishes for important occasions. She used ordinary bowls every day. The fine dishes remained untouched. After her husband died, she opened the cabinet and wept. They had spent thousands of ordinary evenings together. She had kept waiting for a moment special enough. Her regret became a lesson. From then on, she used the beautiful dishes every day. She invited neighbors. She served simple meals with care. The past could not be changed, but its lesson entered the rest of her life. Wisdom is not a life without mistakes. Wisdom is a life that stops wasting mistakes. At 60, 70, or 80, you may think there is not enough time to live differently, but one day lived with awareness is not small. One honest conversation can change a relationship. One apology can soften years of distance. One boundary can end a pattern passed through generations. One peaceful morning can become the first day of a new inner life. You may not have decades, but you have the moment in which you are alive. Buddhist practice transforms suffering by understanding it. The lotus does not grow despite the mud. It grows through the mud. Your regret may be part of the mud of your life. You do not need to worship it. You do not need to remain inside it. Use it. Let it nourish something wiser. Julian asked, "What can the argument with Samuel teach me now?" Brother Hale replied, "What did you value more that night, being right or staying connected?" "Being right." "And what do you value now?" "Connection." "Then live according to what you know now." That afternoon, Julian visited his daughter. He did not bring advice. He did not defend himself. He said, "I think I have been listening to you only when you agree with me." His daughter was silent. Then she began to cry. Julian did not explain. He listened. For the first time, regret had become something other than pain. It had become attention. Think of one regret. Ask, what value is hidden inside this pain? Does it point toward kindness, presence, courage, honesty, freedom, love? Then ask, what is one small action that expresses that value now? Say, my regret can become wisdom. I cannot change the old action, but I can stop wasting its lesson. On the fourth morning, Julian asked a question he had avoided for years. How do I forgive myself? Brother Hale replied, what do you think forgiveness means? That what I did no longer matters. No, that I was not wrong. No, that I should forget. No, Julian became frustrated. Then what is forgiveness? Brother Hale looked toward the window. It is releasing the demand that suffering must continue forever. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. People fear that forgiving themselves means avoiding responsibility. They fear forgiving another person means approving of harm. But forgiveness is not approval. It is not forgetting. It is not trust. It is not reconciliation. It is not pretending that the wound was small. Forgiveness is refusing to let the wound control every remaining day. A person may have harmed you deeply. You may have harmed someone else. The facts remain. The consequences may remain, but the inner sentence does not have to remain endless. There was once a prisoner who was released after many years. When the gates opened, he refused to leave. "Why are you staying?" the guard asked. "I do not know who I am outside." Many people do the same with regret. The punishment becomes familiar. Without it, they do not know who they are. I am the person who failed. I am the parent who was absent. I am the spouse who caused pain. I am the child who never said goodbye. The identity becomes a prison. Forgiveness opens the gate, but walking out requires courage. You must allow yourself to become more than the worst thing you did. This does not mean escaping consequences. A person can accept consequences and still refuse self-hatred. A person can say, "I caused harm. I wish I had acted differently. I will repair what I can, and I will not spend the rest of my life becoming another victim of the same act." Self-forgiveness is not a feeling that arrives suddenly. It is a practice. You may need to repeat, "I release myself from endless punishment," even when part of you does not believe it. You may need to grieve. You may need to apologize. You may need to change. But forgiveness means the goal is healing, not destruction. Julian asked, "What if Samuel would never forgive me?" You do not know what Samuel would do now. But what if he would not? Then your responsibility is still to become wiser. Forgiveness cannot always be received from the person we harmed. Sometimes they are gone. Sometimes they refuse. Sometimes contact would be inappropriate. In those cases, we practice humility. We accept that we cannot control their response. We offer repair where possible. Then we live differently. There is also another kind of regret after 60. Regret over what others did to you. You may regret trusting someone, staying too long, not defending yourself. You may blame yourself for being harmed. Forgiveness here may mean releasing the younger self from responsibility for another person's cruelty. You can learn discernment without turning betrayal into self-hatred. Place one hand over your heart. Say, "Forgiveness does not erase what happened. It does not remove responsibility. It ends the demand for endless suffering. Then I am allowed to become more than my worst moment. I release myself from the prison of one chapter." On the 5th morning, Brother Hale returned for the wooden clock. Julian had repaired it. The clock ticked steadily on the counter. Brother Hale listened. "Where does a clock live?" he asked. "In the present. Not in the hour that passed." "No. Not in the hour that may come." "No. Then why do so many people live where the clock cannot?" Julian looked at the brass clock frozen at 8:17. For 40 years, part of his life had remained there. He had married, raised a daughter, built a business, watched seasons pass. But inside, he was still arguing with Samuel. Regret can become a form of absence. The body continues. The mind remains behind. You sit with people you love, but you are reviewing an old mistake. You wake on a beautiful morning, but you are inside a year that no longer exists. You sacrifice the living present to a dead moment. This may be the greatest tragedy of regret, not only what happened then, but what regret continues to take now. There was once a monk who carried a bowl of water across a courtyard. A student asked, "Why are you walking so slowly?" The monk replied, "Because this water is my life. If I keep looking behind me, I will spill what I still carry." The past deserves attention, but not all attention. At some point, regret must release its claim on the present. You have already lost what happened then. Do not lose what is happening now. After 60, the present becomes especially precious. Not because young life is unimportant, because you can no longer pretend time is unlimited. This can create fear or clarity. You may not be able to repair everything, but there is still life asking for your participation. Someone may still need to hear, "I love you." Someone may still need an apology. You may still need to make peace with your body. You may still be able to travel somewhere nearby, learn something, plant something, call someone, sit in sunlight, laugh without guilt. Regret says, "You have no right to enjoy what remains." Wisdom says, "Because time was lost, do not lose more." Julian asked, "What should I do with Samuel's clock?" Brother Hale replied, "That depends. Do you want it to move again?" Julian opened the clock. The mechanism was too damaged to repair. "I cannot make it run." "Then perhaps you can stop asking it to." Julian removed the clock from the shelf. He carried it outside to a small garden behind the shop. There, beneath an old tree, he placed it beside a photograph of Samuel. He did not throw it away. He did not forget. He allowed it to become a memory instead of a sentence. Then he returned inside. The repaired wooden clock was ticking. 8, 18, 8, 19, 8, 20. Time had not stopped. Only Julian had. Ask yourself, what is regret taking from me today? Attention, rest, connection, joy, the ability to receive love. Say, the past has already taken what it took. I will not give it this moment too. The present is still asking to be lived. Again, the present is still asking to be lived. Weeks passed. Julian's daughter began visiting more often. Their relationship was not instantly perfect. Some conversations remained difficult, but Julian listened longer. He defended himself less. When disagreement appeared, he remembered Samuel, not as punishment, as guidance. One evening, his daughter noticed the empty shelf. "Where is Uncle Samuel's clock?" "In the garden." "Did you finally repair it?" "No." "Then why move it?" Julian looked at the clocks around the shop. "Because I realized a broken clock does not need to control every other clock in the room." His daughter smiled. Julian still felt regret. Some mornings, he woke with the old conversation in his mind. Healing did not erase memory, but now he knew what to do. He placed one hand over his heart. He said, "I know. I am sorry. I am living differently." Then he returned to the day. The first lesson. You made decisions with the awareness you had then. Context does not erase responsibility, but it allows compassion. Do not judge your younger self as though they possessed wisdom that took decades to develop. The second lesson, punishing yourself cannot change the past. Suffering is not the same as responsibility. Repair what can be repaired. Change the pattern. Do not confuse pain with love. The third lesson. Regret can become wisdom. Your regret points towards something you now value. Let the mistake teach you how to live differently. The fourth lesson. Forgiveness does not excuse what happened. It releases the demand for endless punishment. You are allowed to become more than your worst chapter. The fifth lesson. The present is still asking to be lived. Do not allow a dead moment to consume every living one. Time is still moving, and you are still here. Now, allow your body to become still. Let your hands rest. Take one slow breath in and release it gently. Imagine that you are entering an old clock shop. The room is quiet. Hundreds of clocks line the walls. Some move quickly, some slowly. Some have stopped. In the center of the room is one clock connected to your deepest regret. Look at it. Notice the time shown on its face. That moment may represent a mistake, a goodbye, a lost opportunity, a conversation, a choice. You do not need to enter the moment completely. Simply stand before it. Say, I remember. I do not deny what happened. I am willing to see it clearly. Now notice the person you were then, perhaps younger, afraid, angry, confused, tired, trying to survive. Say to that person, you did not understand everything. You made a choice with the awareness you had. You caused pain, or you endured pain. And now I am here. Imagine placing one hand on their shoulder. Say, I will not continue punishing you forever. I will carry the lesson forward. Now hear the other clocks in the room, ticking, moving, alive. They represent the present, a person still available to love, a body still breathing, a morning still waiting, a conversation still possible. Turn away from the frozen clock, not because it did not matter, because the room contains more than one moment. Say, the past is one clock. It is not the whole room. Again, the past is one chapter. It is not my entire life. Now, repeat slowly. I keep the lesson. I release the punishment. I accept responsibility. I allow forgiveness. I return to the present. Take another breath. Feel your body here. The past is not happening now. Memory is happening now. And you can meet memory with compassion. If repair is possible, take one step. Write the letter. Make the call. Offer the apology. Set the boundary. Change the habit. If repair is not possible, allow your life to become the apology. Live with more kindness, more courage, more honesty, more presence. You do not need to prove regret through suffering. You can prove understanding through transformation. Say, I cannot change what happened, but I can change what happens through me now. Let the words settle, like evening light across an old room. After 60, regret can feel like a visitor who knows every hidden door. It enters through quiet mornings, old photographs, familiar songs, the birthdays of people who are gone. But regret does not have to become the owner of the house. You can listen to what it came to teach, then ask it to leave. Perhaps you made serious mistakes. Perhaps others harmed you. Perhaps life did not become what you expected. Your pain is real, but the present is real too. You are still capable of kindness, still capable of apology, still capable of change, still capable of receiving one peaceful day. You do not need to create a perfect ending to justify your life. You need only meet this moment with more awareness than you had before. Let your regret become wisdom. Let your guilt become responsibility. Let your memory become compassion. And let the time that remains become life. Until we meet again, flow gently. Release what you cannot hold and return to peace. Good night. May the past teach you without imprisoning you. May forgiveness soften what cannot be changed. And may your remaining years be lived fully in the time that is still moving.